Have you picked out your fabrics for this evening yet? I'm going black and red. Well, now that I put them together, I'm not sure. So I was going to do where the green is, the red. I mean, where the green is, the black, honest to God. Well, I'll do one, then if I don't like it, I can always do it again. Oh, Lynn, you're sewing along good. I'm using my Saturday project for my, put my scissors and stuff on. Oh, because I don't like to put stuff right on my table. I end up scratching it up. And this little stem sticks right underneath there. Let's see if I can come in a tad closer. There. How's that? Got your plates all ready? Replenished my my pin supply because I remembered that I have pins in another project that I left in it, so my pin supply was running low. My extra blocks. Just so you guys don't feel alone, I was finishing off the another one of these, and I can't find two of my little ends. And I know it's because I moved them, and then I moved them again, and then I moved them again. But the nice thing is it only takes a second and not much fabric to cut out two more. So let's see. One more minute. Let's see if anybody else is signing in. Okay, so let me gather up my blocks and get those out of the way. Has anybody laid out their blocks and just looked at them and go, oh, look what I've got done? I have to do another one of these because this one's my favorite, the card trick. So let me just put those in my bag. That's what's nice about 6-inch blocks is they fit in little bags pretty nicely. Okay, so tonight we're working on the block right here. We only have 2 more to go. Next week will be the basket, and then we'll end with this one before we get talking about what's going to go for our borders. And we'll talk about that next week as well. So we want to be on page 13. I'm smart this time. I put a clip in it. And it's called Roll of the Dice. And I'm doing the 6-inch one. I think most of you are doing the 6-inch, but whatever size you're doing. And so the 6-inch, we're going to need the 2-inch square and the 2-inch half square. So let me just set that there. So the square, so 2-inch, that's the one second from the middle. Okay. Oh, pardon my arms here. And then we want the half square. So we want to make sure we pick the half square, not the quarter square. So the half square, 2 inch. So the 2 inch one is the middle one on the big side. So let me take my fabric down and put this out of the way. Trying to decide where out of the way is. Here we go. Okay, so let me just set my fabrics down here. I've got my 2 pieces. I'm going to look at the picture, and you can look in your book if you want to. So with the green, in this case, I'm going to use the black. I need 1, 2, 3, 4 squares, and that's it. The white is 1, 2, 3, 4 squares. So I'm going to just do the black ones first. So I'm going to set this, I guess I can set that right there, you can still see it. And get my plates, and I think I'm going to use my junior plates. I found that if you take your all your plates, but no dies in them, and run them through, and I think it's with the hump of it going this way, and run them through, that'll help flatten them out again. So I'm going to start with my, well, since I'm bowed, I'm going to start with my Gemini down. I can do them all the same, I guess. Oh, my metal. Let's see how this is going to go. Got my tape. And my black fabric, I need 4. So, I might be able to get 4 if I do it this way. Okay, so so if I hang this off, see how this is hanging off? So because in the big Gemini, this goes in this way. So I'm going to switch to my big plate so I can hang my fabric off. I got them all close by. And pardon my head every time I put my head in the way. Okay, so okay, so now let me try and see. I'm going to look for my straight. So my straight of grain isn't going to matter so much because I'm straight in every direction. But if you want to just always remind yourself to check for your straight of grain. So my straight of grain is this way. And remember, I always like to line my straight of grain up the same way. And for those of you that have the Accuquilt cutter, it's the same thing. You have to pay attention to the straight of grain. So I would say no matter what cutter you have, oh, look at that. It just makes it for the 4. So I'm going to turn it this way so that that fabric can hang down there. And I guess I'll give it a little tape. And I'm going to pick let's pick this spot right here. Oh, let's go up higher. I haven't used much up the top. So look for a spot on your metal plate that you haven't used a lot. Use that spot. get our sandwich ready. Okay, so we should be able to get this. Oh, that's just me banging my knees. Sorry if I wiggled the camera. I told you I was in a little tight spot. Okay, so let's get everybody going together here. Here we go. Oop. There we go. I apologize, the machine is very close to the microphone. Okay, so I'm going to flip my plate over and flip that over. And pull out my, so I have my 4 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you know I'm going to trim my fabric. And I don't need that one any longer. And I've got tape everywhere here. Okay, so I want to make sure I flip this over, flip this one over. And now I need, let's see, where are we? So now we need 4 of the white, or whatever your background is going to be. So I think this one is skinnier. This is a different shape. So I'm going to fold this over and then fold it in half. And let me just show you, you see how I didn't fold this inside. So I could have folded this way, but then I couldn't keep track of where the end of that fabric was. And I think I probably did a big fold here. I mean, too big a fold. And I'm just going to put my fabric right there. And again, see, if I'm hanging off the end, that's fine because I'm feeding the sandwich in this side first. So whatever's hanging off the end is fine. And that does come in handy. Okay, so I'm just going to go right there. And make my sandwich again. I have to stand up to see this. Okay, get it all in there. Oh, look, I wore my Halloween shirt. Can you see it? Which way do I have to go here? Well, you can't see it. It says I've got your back. That's what it says. I was thinking it said I got a phone to pick with you. Okay, so now I'm going to flip this over this way. Yep, that way. Flip this over this way. And I've got 1, 2. Oh, these guys don't want to come apart. There we go. 3, 4. And I'm just going to trim this here and here. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to bang on you. And I'm just going to open this up and trim these. See how I got these little edges? It's just nicer to, oh, I don't want to get rid of that yet. Just nicer to kind of clean up as you go. Okay, so let's look what we have. Oh, hi, Rhonda. How are you doing? Glad you made it. Okay, so we've done our squares, the green squares. I did mine in black. We've done our white squares. So now everything else is a half square triangle. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that would make 16 half square triangles. And if we look at our book, it says 16 half square triangles. So we're good. So we need 8 and 8. So I'm going to set this die aside. 8 and 8. Ooh, we're going to go for 8 at one time. Okay, so now we need to have, oh, yeah, I remembered to turn my cutting mat over to the light side. You're proud of me. So we need to pay attention to, this needs to be on the straight of grain because we've got this angle here. Oh, I'm not sure if I can reach that. Sorry about that. When the election's over, that phone will stop ringing. Okay, so we need 8, and we need to have our straight of grain. So here's our straight of grain. The first thing we was just going to set it there. My straight of grain is here. So that I know that this is going to go in this direction or this direction. Either one of these can be the straight. Because one is straight of grain, one's cross grain, but this is the bias part here. Cross grain has a little stretch and straight of grain has no stretch. But the bias has a lot of stretch. Okay, so I need 8 of them. Okay, so let's see. That gives me 2. And that gives me 4. Are we gonna, Atlanta, we gonna try for 8 tonight? Let's give it a whirl, shall we? Okay, so my straight of grain is still here. I've left my fabric in the same spot. So I just need to know how much I need to fold it. And so I'm going to fold it up. And again, I want the fold on this side. I don't want it underneath. I need to see where the edge of that fabric is. And that looks pretty good, but I really need to tape that down. And I want to make sure I don't have anything hanging over here. Okay, so I'm going to tilt it just a tad. I'm tilting it just a tad so when it feeds in, it doesn't feed in that whole line at one time, but I want to make sure that my fabric stays inside of the sandwich. Okay, did I turn everybody over? Ooh, I don't remember now. Okay. Well, if I didn't, I'll do it next time. Okay. So sandwich time again. This time I have 8, so it's going to make a little more popping noise probably. 8 layers. Okay, block your ears, here we go. Boy, it really slowed down for that. Ooh, it's still bouncing, so up we go. And I'm going to go up and over to see if I can flatten that bow out. And let's see how we did. Well, they cut just fine. I got tape all over my fingers, so let's just make sure I have 8 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, our cutting will be done in no time. And I'm just going to cut this right off here. Okay, so we're done with the red. Now we're going to go back to the white, and I've got to find my straight of grain. So my straight of grain is this way. Yep. So I think I'm going to try to use this part up here. So let's see if I can fold that. Well, you know what? Let's do this. Let's do this first. So straight of grain, double checking. Okay. I'm going to fold it over. So there's 2 there. Now I'm going to fold this one and fold again and see if I can, yep, that works. And I'm going to put it on the angle. Oh shoot, that's a little tight, that one. Let's see, let's go, what do I think I got? 2, 4, I'm going to go this way. That was a little close. I just got to make sure I moved the fabric around, so I always want to stop and check. I want to have a little extra room because I'm using so much fabric at one time. So oh wait a minute, I need 8. I've got 2, 4, 6. Oh, I need one, I need another fold. Is that correct? 2, 4, 6, we needed 8. So I'm going to stick, this one's bigger, excuse me, so I'm going to stick it underneath. My tape. And I don't think I turned this around, so let's turn that around, and let's turn this around, and let's do, oh, I don't know, let's do this spot right here. How's everybody doing? You doing okay? Oh, that's noisy, isn't it? Okay, and this will be our last cut. And if you wanted to, you could have cut 4 at a time. You know, it doesn't take that long, so if you want to cut 4 at a time or however you want to do it, for you, whatever works for you that's more comfortable. Okay, here we go. Oh. Now, I'm going to stop mine from going all the way and back up because my metal plate is crooked. And I'll show you in a second. So my metal plate, see how it was sticking out over here? So I didn't want that to harm the machine in any way. So I'm going to flip that one, and oh, I didn't go in far enough. Darn it. Okay. I didn't go down far enough in the cut. I'm going to go this way. Now you have to listen to it all over again. Okay. And flip it over, flip it over. There we go. So we have, oh, let's see, they're kind of squished together here. Here we go. 1, 2. They're extra squished because they went part way through and not all the way through twice. 3, 4. 5, 6. These two guys are, oh, there we go. Oh, I say they're really squished together. 7, 8. And we're done with that die. So I'm just going to trim this off, throw that all away, get rid of all that tape. And flip my plates over, my fabric away, get my plates out of the way, shut my machine off, and then we're going to get ready to sew. So is everybody all cut okay? Okay, so let's lay out our block. So I know I got 4 squares in the corner, and I want to make sure it's right side up. Okay, so I know I have 4 squares in the corner. We're looking at this, and next to the background goes a colored one, in green, in my case it's black. This one is going down here. This one is going over here, and that one is going there. So we're just looking here and see how we got the white or background 4 corners, and then next to it is the colored, the green, or the, in my case it's black. Then I need to look at the where the half square triangles are. So the red is going to go this way, and then I'm going here, and it's facing down this way. So so it's up against the green, or in my case the black one. Okay, so you can see, oh, I got this one wrong. So you got that one backwards. That one's good. This one's good. That one's good. So I had this one backwards. Okay, so now we can put the white one in, or your background. And leave yourself enough room. But I guess I better pay attention to which side is which here. It's hard to tell under that light. Okay, and now we have the center to do. So if we take the red ones and put those where they go, so that red again goes against the green and it butts up with the other red. Oh, sorry. I had that up too high in the air, didn't I? And what you're going to see is the red is really 4 corners, the 4 corners. See how it's the 4 corners of the center? Does that make sense? See how this is your center and it's the four corners. So that the white, and I just have to stop to make sure I got the, I'm going to pull these apart a little more. This, I don't need to cram everybody in. Oh, forgot, I was going to say, I forgot one. I had an extra, forgot to put that guy on. Trying to figure out how I came out with an odd number. Okay. So I know it doesn't look a lot like the picture, but if you look, here's your, excuse me. Okay. So if you look, you've got the four in the center that are your background, whatever your background is. And on the four corners of that is your red, if that's where you're putting your red. Your white is on the corner. Next to the white is the black or the green. And then you've got your little half squares in between that. Now, if you look at this like this half square, say I can turn it in any direction, it's a half square. So we can sew all of our half squares at one time. So let's try it. Let's go ahead and do this one, and we'll put it back, and then we'll do these three together, just so you can kind of get used to that chain piecing, okay? And you can check your book and make sure you're lined up the same way. So you're making these two attach or next door to each other. So let me just put that back there. Okay, we ready to go? So let me switch over. Oh. And I ran into my camera there. Okay, so I shut the light out over the machine so that you can see the lighting of this better. So normally I'm on the smaller machine, and I'm always talking about the settings on the bigger machine. So now I have the bigger machine. This is the BuildaBlock Solaris. Thought I had a minute there. And if you have like the BuildaBlock Destiny or the Alissimo too, I believe, your tabs for the different types of stitches is on this side. With the Solaris, it's along the top. And we want to go to the Q. So there's a Q. Okay. And then because I'm using my J foot, I'm going to use the piecing number Q2. And that moves the needle a little more to the right so that I can use the edge of my J foot for my 1/4 inch. Okay, not past the J foot. You'll end up being like just inside the J foot. Again, if you're using the 1/4 inch foot with the guide, you're going to stay on your regular, what is it, 1-03. Okay? So we don't need to pin this when we pick it up because we're putting the angle pieces together. Oh, let me come back to the other. I made it. Oh, you know what? Let me turn that light on now. Okay. Yeah, now you can see. So we're putting the two angles together. And remember, these edges are exactly the same on both pieces. And we're going to go from this edge down to that edge. We don't need to do a locking stitch. but you do want to have fabric under your needle. Oh, gotta get my... I have my pivot on, which is right here on this machine. And so there we go, and we're going to press it. We're going to press to the dark side. So we'll just give a little finger press. And I'm going to, let me switch back. Okay, so I'm going to put this one back where it belongs. And I know where it belongs because it's touching this one. Okay, and if I look at my picture, there it is right there. Okay, so now we're going to do the next 3 chain piecing. So I'm just going to flip that over. Get it lined up. And I'm going to switch the camera in a minute. So I'm going to get this one ready. And it doesn't matter if the red's on top of the white's on top. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to get them all ready. So I have all 3 of them. I'm just going to set them right here. Let me switch over. Okay, so let me see if I can do this without causing too much commotion. If I can zoom in a little closer. Okay. So I still have a little bit of fabric there, but I haven't stitched yet. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch to the end. Now this one's on an angle, so you know we're used to button up flat parts together, but we got this angle. So I'm just going to, I don't know if I can, hold on, I'll see if I can bend the camera more. So what I'm doing is I'm lining up this tip here with the one already in the, can you see a little bit? Can you see right? Whoop, right in there. See right there? So if you get 1 stitch or even 2 in the air, it's okay. You just don't want to stitch, you know, 3 or 4 because they'll just start to tangle up. Let me just set that down again. And what I'm going to do, because I have pivot, if you don't have pivot, you're going to have to lift your foot up. But I want to make sure that I also line up with my foot. If I look at my plate, let me see if I get this lined up first. If I look at my bobbin plate, if you have the bobbin plate that has, see how it's got the 1/4 inch right there? So I know I have to stay just right near that line. If I'm using the J foot. And I'm going to go ahead and do the next one. Get to the end. And then I'm going to go ahead and place the next one in. I don't want to push it on top of the other one. And then go to the end and then cut my thread. So let me put this back again a little bit. There we go. So now we've got the 3 going here. Okay? Everybody doing okay so far? So we've got the 3. So we just have to unclip them. And we're going to open and press to the dark side. If you want to press them with your iron, remember, just take them to the ironing board and just straight up and down. But you're going to have to open it and do a little finger press first. Just make sure that you don't get that crease of fabric right where the seam allowance is. And I'm referring to my picture. You can refer to your picture in your book. And what I'm doing is okay, why am I frozen in spot here? Okay, I was frozen for a second in case you thought that there was a little lull there. Not sure what that was. Okay, so what I want to make sure is, you see how those colors go together? And do you see how these colors go together? So just double check as you go along. Okay? Now, if you want to do it the regular way like we did before, you'll just take one at a time and then put it back exactly where it was. But I want you to go ahead and try doing, so we're going to do all three of these again. Doesn't matter what order you get them in. Doesn't matter if this one comes out first, second, third. They're all half square triangles. They're nothing's going to change. You know, it just depends how you place them. So I'm going to stack everybody up, get them ready. I will leave the last row just so you know, you're just doing the row you're in. Does anybody have any questions? Someone want to let me know that you're doing okay? Rhonda, how you doing? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And I guess you can see me right there. I don't need to flip back. If you want me to flip back to the other camera, just let me know. Oh, did you hear that? So I have two pedals, a little pedal that cuts my thread and then my big pedal, and I had my foot on the little pedal because it's a little ways away from me, so I didn't reach as far as I should have. So let me I guess I'll switch over. Oh, I'm glad you're doing good. And I know my hands are probably in your way. And see, I stopped just to line up my end, and normally I would have this finger on the end and this hand over here, but my hand's in your way, so I'm doing it this way, one finger here and one there. But when I get up higher, I want to hang on to that little guy. So once your needle's into your last one, just you know, maneuver it however you need to get it nice and straight. Okay, so I'm just going to set the 3 down, and I've set the 3 down in the 3rd row, and I'm just going to take the last row and get this last one done. When you're sewing by yourself and not following along, you'll be able to get a little more efficient. But the chain piecing really makes you much more efficient. Oh, see, I went to hit the thing and I already cut it. Okay. So this was the last one I did. So I'm going to put him back in the bottom row. And see how I just threw the 3 there because I know they go. That's their home right there. So you could have done the first one, just thrown it back, done the 3, thrown them back, done the 3, thrown them back, and then opened them and pressed them all at one time. You'll get into a habit of what works best for your brain, your way of thinking. Don't necessarily do it my way of thinking. If you find that it's confusing the way I do it, then do it how it feels that it makes more sense to you. Sometimes if it doesn't make any sense no matter what, just go with the way I do it, and then you'll find that that'll either work for you or you'll find your own little way of doing it. Okay, so this one goes down. This one goes down. Because see how these two are going to line up. And then this one's going to line up with this guy. I don't know why I call them guys. Okay, and then these two are going to line up. See how that makes that little, what is that? Lynn will tell me, is that like a parallelogram or something like that? Ooh, I saw big words there. Okay, so let's make sure everybody's back in order. So you can check my sheet. I'll hold it there for a minute. Okay, because this one's kind of flopping around, but I'll hold that one there for a minute so you can get yours in order. Everybody doing okay? Oh, geez, I'm tipping the table over. Okay, so it's time for a little, I need a little water break here. If I could find it. Actually, I'm drinking lemonade and I think it's making me more thirsty. Okay, so we're ready to start on our rows? Or our columns, I should say. So let's space them out a little bit so that everybody's in their own little column. Okay, row 1, 2, 3, 4, column 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to need 4 pins. Remember, we're turning the page of the book. So column B on top of column 1, put a pin in it, stick a pin in it. Oh, thanks, Rhonda. Rhonda likes my choice of fabric. This is a layer cake from Christmas Flourish, I think it is. They come out with a new group every year, and they're all metallics. And this is probably, I don't know, maybe, I don't think it was last year, so probably the year before. In my inventory, Rhonda. Okay, flipping it over. And remember, that's why I keep a mat down, because I can dig my pin into my mat without scratching my table. I don't have to be lined up perfect, because I can do that at the sewing machine. Oh, I still got tape on this one. Don't need to sew the tape in. There we go. Not that it would hurt anything, but oh, now I got to remember how I had that. The tape won't hurt anything. It's just harder to get it out after you've stitched it in. So when I pick this up to move it, I double checked my, oh, see, I did it again. I double checked my row. I looked at row 2, but I meant to look at row 3. And I remember this red is in the corner. Remember, the red's in each corner. And pin number 4. All right, now we're going to leave them right here. We're not going to pick them all up at one time. Because we want to make sure they're in order, because we're going to web them like a spider web. We're webbing them all together. Okay. So this time I'm not going to switch over to the sewing machine, because I want you to see where I keep picking from. So I got my first one. My pin's over here. I'm going to come over here. Take my pin out, make sure I've got this all lined up nicely. And sometimes holding it isn't the best. Sometimes you have to just like set it down. I kind of can, sometimes if you need to move just a little bit, kind of like you're scratching with your fingers to just move it a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and stitch the first one. And stop. I still have it in. I'm almost to the end, but not quite. Picking up the next one. Okay, row 2. Needles, pins over here. Bringing it over. Take the pin out. Get it situated properly. You've got a seam in the back, and that's going down, so that's fine. But you're going to have to watch this seam on top to make sure it doesn't flip over. Ow. Had my finger under the foot. Okay. Everybody's still hooked together. Next one, row 3, pins on the right. This one doesn't have any seam underneath. It's a regular square of fabric. Number 4, pins on the right. Again, no seam underneath, so just keep an eye on this seam here. Okay, now we're done. Okay, we're going to bring it back over and lay it down so all your seams are right along this side. Okay, and we're just going to open it up. And I think I'm going to press to the dark side, but I'm not positive yet, because, okay, so it isn't going to matter because I've got a seam. No matter what I do, I've got a seam on each side. So I'm going to see if it will go to the left. And then the next one will go to the right. So I don't really want to do that. I really want to go to the left. So I'm going to take it to the left this way, the seam allowance. I'm going to change this one, and I'm just going to reach underneath and push it to the right and re-finger press down, because these are both just squares, so I can go right or left here. Okay, so this one's to the left, this one's to the right, this one's to the left, because I'd rather go to the fabric with no seam than the fabric with the seam. And well, I guess it isn't going to matter because we have to go, let me see, we went to the left, now we got to go to the right. So see how I told you sometimes just the way it comes out, Oh, that's starting to look pretty good. You just have to, sometimes you just have to go with whatever happens, because both of these plain fabrics, plain squares, are on the left. We can't have both seams going to the left. So, but this one didn't mind going to the right. He told me so. He said he didn't mind it at all. Okay, looking at our picture, does our picture look like our first two rows? Does your picture look, first two columns, does yours look like the first two columns? Okay, so let's get our 4 pins again. Okay, we got our 4 pins, and now we're working with column C. This time, when we pin them all together, we pick it up. Remember, this is all attached now. So we know we'll be in the right order. We won't get out of order. So turning the page of the book again. And if you guys are, comfortable with it, you can go ahead of me. I don't mind. So I'm going down the rows, flipping the column C onto column B. Now, these two squares have the seam going the same way. So I'm going to push this seam in the other direction so that they can nestle in beside each other. And you'll see that when you press that in the other direction. And then the last row. Okay, so we got a straight seam under there. So, I mean a plain block under there. So we're all set to go. I just want to look and see, yeah, plain block under there. So now we're just going to pick it up, and it's all one piece. Okay, now I'll switch the camera over. And come in a little closer. Does that help you a little bit? So here's my whole, when I lay this down, see, all my pins are on the right-hand side, and that's where they belong. I'm only going to take out the pin I need, otherwise they'd all fall apart. So, pin out, making sure I have it all lined up. Okay, and that means I'm lining it up on the all three sides. And making sure that one fabric isn't past the other on any of the sides. Now, even though my machine, when I hit my foot pedal, the presser foot will go down, I put it down myself because then I want to make sure that my needle is on fabric and I'm lined up along here. I'm just going to go a little ways, okay? Because I don't want the second piece to get too close to the presser foot. Okay, so I do have a seam under here. You see it? So let's see, do I want to go this way? Or do I want to go this way? Okay, I'm already stitched in. We're already stitched in with this seam going up or towards the back of the machine. So I'm going to take this one and bring it down. And that way, look, can you see? I'm bringing this seam, which was this way, I'm going to bring it the opposite way. so that now I can feel those two seams nestled together. Okay, we've talked about that before. And I want to make sure I can feel that seams nestled in the whole way down. Then I want to make sure I get my square that I was sewing first in a good spot. So I'm going to make sure I still hang on to that one. Now I'm getting ready for this one, the second row. Getting that lined up. Okay, now I'm on the third row. And this one also has a seam, but remember we already fixed that when we were at the work table. So we should be good to go. So you notice I hang on to this when I pull my pin out, because you can pull your pin out, and if you're not hanging on to these two pieces, I've got them pinched together, then you're gonna throw everything off again if you already had it lined up. So I'm lining up. You see how I'm lining up? The third row is lined up to the second row. Okay, and I just want to feel along here, make sure my seams are snuggled together there, locked together. I want to make sure that I don't flip this seam back towards me, because I need it to face the back way. So if you don't have pivot, just reach back and lift your press a foot up just a little bit. You don't have to lift it up all the way, just a little bit. You'll get used to that. And then the last row, and I'm lining that block up, or that square up with the square from row 3. Okay. So here we are now. And let's just take a look at how we're going to do our seams. So I can see that no matter which way I go here, I've got a seam. Whether I press this seam right or left, I've got a seam, and I've got a seam. I don't have a seam here, and I don't have one here, but they're on opposite sides, so that's not helpful. So let's see. Let's just try doing the top one is going to the right. See how that works out. And that's why, see, if I went ahead and pressed this with an iron, it would be harder to change it. So, I'm sorry. This one was to the left. Did I say left or right? Well, you know what? Mine went right whether I wanted it to or not. But I'm going to see if I want to press it to the left. Apparently, I don't know my left from my right. My next one's to the right. And it already feels like it went that way anyway. So this one is right, this one is left. And then this one is right. Oh, so that worked out well. That did work. So left, right, left, right. So that did work. So we got both of our seams going to the plain block, the plain square. And again, I just finger pressed. So let's look and see if everything's looking like it's supposed to. I think we can start to see how we're looking. So we just finished column 3. So we're here. So here's our 2 reds, here's our 2 reds, here's the 2 reds, and this will be the other red. But here's our center. Remember, the center was all the background fabric. Here's the 4 corners that we had for the center. So we're looking pretty good. Okay, so let's make sure we got everybody where they belong. And so if we look at it, well, that, by golly, doesn't that look just like that block? Doesn't it? How's that? Is your block looking like that? Let me know. Okay, so now we're going to flip our last column. So A, B, C, D, column D. Got my 4 pins. Okay. Flipping row 1. Pin in. We're pretty good on this one because we got 3 squares with no seams. So we don't have to worry about it. Okay, row 2. Row 3. And now these seams are opposite of each other. This one's going this way, that one's going the other way, so we don't have to worry about that either. So see, column D was a breeze. And the last one, okay, so everybody's lined up. Let's go back to the machine. So again, when I bring this over, I've got all, oh, let me back up a little bit. Oh, back up, back up. All my pins are on that side. Everybody's behaving themselves. So we'll start with the first one. Pin out, line it up. You'll be sitting a little closer to your machine than I am to mine. I'm a bit of a distance away. I'm going to put my foot down. I'm going to double check to make sure that my fabric is lined up here. Everybody's lined up in this fabric under my needle. Okay, go most of the way. Pin out. Line the ends up. So you're lining up here, but make sure you line up the top and bottom as best you can at the same time. That keeps it from getting a little wonky. And now your squares are pretty much going to stay right where they're supposed to because they're all so linked together now. Okay, I gotta go just a little more. And I can feel the seam underneath, and the seam is going to my left. So with my fingers back here, I'm just smoothing to make sure that's going where it's supposed to. And lining everybody up. I'm going to slow down, let my presser foot come up to make sure this seam here is heading to the back so it can flip forward. The presser foot can push it forward. So once you get it under the presser foot a bit, it won't push it forward anymore. And the last one, so make sure when you line it up on the right, line it up along that bottom too. Okay, let's see how we're doing. So I'm going to press this seam to the right. This one is going to have to go, you know what, this guy really wants to stay, this one really wants to stay to the right, so I'm going to let this one go to the left. I could pay more attention to underneath, but I really, you know, I like if the whole row is going one way, but I don't tend to do that. So this one is left, this one is right, this one is left, and this one is right. So before we go too far now, how's your block looking? Is it looking like that? Because now's the time. Now's the time to stop. If you've got a mistake, now's the time to stop. So I think I'm good. I'm going angled up, angled down, angled over. So it's making like it's making a square, sort of. Okay, we good? Mine looks good to me. I hope it looks. Hope I'm not looking at it wrong. So now we're going to put our rows together. So we're just going to flip down. And remember now, this is all one piece. So I'm going to flip this down. And now we're going to use pins in our seams. Should be opposite of each other. So we can just work it in so it's nice and flat. And you can feel it. You should be able to feel that by now. We've been doing this long enough. But you can feel that when it locks in side by side. So I'm just going to go to the next one. And I'm putting my pin in just a little ways after the seam. So here's my seam right by my thumb. So that I should be able to sew up and the needle will be in at least this seam allowance before I take this pin out. Because when I take the pin out, it could throw your line-up off a little bit. And make sure you feel the whole way down. And then I'm going to just stick an extra pin in because I want you to pay attention to making sure that not only is this straight, but this needs to be straight, okay? So I want you to, by putting the pin in, it might help you pay attention to making sure this whole thing should be straight because they're two plain squares. But if you put your pin in here, that'll help you to remember to line this up along this edge and this edge. So let's take it to the machine. And let's see if I can come in a little closer. I don't know if that helps or not, but so I didn't put a pin in at the beginning. So if you want to put a pin at the beginning, you need to put it down. You need to put it down a ways. You can't put it here; it's already going to be in the way. So if you want a pin in the beginning, you want to put it down further. Okay. And again, you lined up here, but you need to be lined up here, which will make you also lined up there. If you kind of keep an eye on all the sides, you won't get as wonky, hopefully. And you'll get better at it as you stitch more. So I'm just going to take a few stitches so that my needle's down. That becomes my third hand, so to speak. And I'm always feeling where the seam allowance is to make sure there's not a bump there. And see how I keep my hand on the left. Okay, my pin looks like it's in a long ways, but it's not to my needle yet. It can be under the foot. You just don't want it to have the needle hit it. Okay, I'm going to stop again. I'm going to make sure that seam allowance is nice and flat the whole way to the left. Take my time. And I'm always holding my fabric down when I take my pin out. Okay? Now, I want to make sure that, see, this seam allowance flipped back towards me, and it needs to go facing towards the machine. So I looked underneath to see which way the underneath one was going, and that one's coming towards me where this guy wanted to flip towards me as well. So I got to make sure I flip him back. The little rascal. I'm going slow to make sure my seam allowance doesn't get flipped over. And I'm going to take all the pins out. And my finger, normally I'd have it right here. Well, let me go ahead and see if I can do that. My other hand is on the left of my fabric. And my right hand finger there is holding on as long as it can. Okay? All right, does anybody have any questions? Okay, so here's our first section. And feels like my seam allowance is going up. So I'm going to give this a little bit of a press. And let's see. We're looking pretty good, pretty lined up. I'm pleased. I'm thrilled with that. Look at that point, came out nice. So everybody's lined up pretty well. So you can go, oh, whew, I got that first one done. So now we're going to flip it down again. We're going to do the exact same thing. I'll look at my seam allowance on both sides. Make sure everybody's tucked in together. Okay, so let's do that pin at the beginning this time. So make sure your ends here, so across here and down here, are lined up. Don't worry about the seam. Don't worry about this seam yet. Just get your end right. Put your pin in, and it's a little ways away. Now we'll go to the seam. Since they're all attached to each other, everything is pretty well lined up. And I've got to lay this down because I feel like my front fabric's getting above my back fabric. There we go. So I wasn't lined up here. Because sometimes we get all excited about getting the seam allowances to nest together that we forget about the rest of it. And now I've got to look at this again because I'm not looking quite right. So let's see what the scoop is. So see how I've got that much? Can you see the black hanging over? So I'm just going to leave that for a minute. And I want to make sure I've got everybody else lined up on both sides. And it could be I just didn't sew correctly somewhere along the way. But I want to show you how you can fix that. And then I'm going to come out to the end. And I've got to get this guy. So I have to really pull this one over to get it to that end, but that's okay, because now I can feel everybody's flattening out nicely together. Oh, I'm going to pin a little closer to the end. You know, you've got an awful lot of seams going here, so don't expect it's going to be perfect because there's a lot more seams, and if you're off a little bit can make more issues for you than if you just have a few seams. So don't be hard on yourself about it. All right, now I'm going to go back down this end and see what my problem is. And what I'm looking at is I want to look at, you see this black fabric? It should be lined up with this right here, this seam right on. So let's see if you can see it. Oh, sorry. We do it this way. So this, maybe this way. Oh, sorry. This edge of this black isn't lined up with the seam. It's lined up with the end of this fabric here. You see that? So I want to line those up. And I'm going to put a pin there for a minute. So now I know that this side and this side are straight. Now I'm off a little bit, but not like I was. But I'm straight along this edge, and I'm straight along this edge, so that when I flip this guy back up, he'll be straight. So I'm a little crooked, and I think I can show you better on the other camera. So hopefully that kind of makes sense to you. And everybody's laying nice and flat. So let me flip to the other camera and see if we can get a better close-up. Okay, so, oh, that's way too close up. Hold on. Okay, so what I want you to see is, you see how that little bit of black fabric, let me see if I can get that. Yeah, I have to get my finger out of the way. Right here. You see that black fabric right there? If I bring my finger in, it'll go out of focus. Right here. You see that little bit of black is above the red. So my red is a little off, but I'm going to sew, as I sew my seam allowance, I'm going to follow the black one because the black one is right in line with the rest of it. See how the red is down a little bit? Okay, I want to make sure my seam is nestled in there. But I'm just off a little bit, but I'm going to follow along the black. Can you see the black right there? Okay. Okay, let me back this up a little bit. So this pin that I have here, this pin, I'm just going to move it over a little bit to get it out of my way because I'm going to just leave it in. Because I want to make sure that my fabric underneath is lined up, so I'm lined up square. And sometimes if you do that, that'll help you if your squares are a little like off kilter. So I'm going to put a couple stitches in. Excuse me, let me get a drink. So see, I've got this needle way over here out of the way. And that can, now that I've stitched a few stitches, I can go ahead and take that out. And I'm going to stitch just a little more till I get to that pin. Now remember, my red fabric, just where the seam allowance is down a tad from the black. So I'm just going to follow the black because I know the black is right because it's right in line with the rest of this. I hope that makes sense to you. Because I don't want you to take something apart if you don't have to. Because sometimes you take things apart and it gets worse instead of better. And I want to make sure that my fabrics are lined up. The top one and the bottom one are lined up on the edge. And remember, each time I get over the seam just a little ways and closer to that needle, that pin, and I'm holding my fabric down while I take that pin out. And I'm slowing down again because I got a seam allowance that's facing towards the presser foot. And I got a lot of seams right here, so I can see that it's trying to misbehave. Taking the last pin out, I'm just going to make sure that everybody is lined up together. I got my corner, so my corner is good, and along here is good, as well as here. So let's see what that did for us. Okay. So that seam feels like it wants to go down, so I'm going to let it go down. And see now how that is nice and straight, and this is straight. And let's see if I can show you this. So I have the seam allowance going down, and I want you to look at right where these fabrics meet each other. The seam allowance is going down. Okay, so, and you see here, you see how that looks like it's not lined up? Now watch what happens when I put the seam allowance up. See how it's perfect now? I'll show you that again. It's like magic. So I'm putting the seam allowance down. Do you see how can you see how they don't quite, see how it doesn't quite match up? And if I put the seam allowance up, oh, that isn't helpful. See how that changed? That's just the bulk of the seam allowance changing it. So sometimes you have to move your seam allowance up or down. Now see how nice that looks now? And that was just that little bit. And it seemed like about 1/8 of an inch. But that little bit changed when I put that seam allowance up. Okay, last one. So again, I'm going to pin along this side. And that will help you to remember that you need to line this up as well as this part. Okay, so now I'm lined up along here. I'm going to stick a pin in. Before I even start with my seam allowance. And my seam allowance actually fell right into place. Because when we did that chain piecing, we chain pieced. Remember how I told you to line up your new block section with the one that's under the presser foot? And again, I can feel that this is lining up nicely. Just double check to make sure your tops for your front and back are lined up. Now before I do this one, I'm going to come down to this end and make sure everything is lined up here and here. That way you won't forget about it. And then make sure that those seams are nestled together and feel it the whole way down. Make sure your back and front fabrics are lined up at the top. It's our last row, because you guys may be already done and gone to bed. Just kidding. Oh, so let me switch the camera over again. There we go. So it's like a little parade of little soldiers there. And I do take all my pins out as I go, because I did one time leave a pin in, and I was quilting the quilt and the pin was still in. Except it was inside the quilt. Remember, don't sew over your pins. Okay, and we're done. Let's switch back. Okay, and again, I'm going to decide which way looks better for my my points. So let's see if you can see this one again. So I put this one down. Okay, so watch. See if you can see this. So can you see how that's white right there at the end, and it really shouldn't be? See it right there by my thumb? See that little white corner? It's like a magic act. And now it's not there. But I do have a big bunch right here in the middle. And I'm going to see, you know how we swirl it? Oops, sorry. So I got a big bunch right here. So I'm going to take out, get my seam ripper. I'm going to see if I can do a little swirl right there. So I'm going to take out the stitches that are past the seam allowance. So there's 3 of them, 2 or 3 of them. Generally, if you get 2 out, the 3rd one. I'm going to do the same on the other side. And let's see if I can open that up. Okay. So I had a it felt like a knot right there. And I did a little twirl, and you can see, oh, hold on, you get everything out of your way here. So I made a little twirl there. There's 4 little squares there. But what happened is see, I need to twirl this seam towards me. And it's really going the other way. Okay? So I was able to flip that back. If I couldn't flip this one back, so I needed this part to go this way and this one was going this way, which this feels flatter with this part of the seam going away from me. And this feels flatter with that same seam coming towards me. So what I'm going to do is, let me switch to the other camera because I think I can do a better close-up. Okay, so there's our little, oh, there you can see it. See, our little swirl is there. So this seam part here needs to come this way, where this part needs to go that way for this juncture to feel good. So I'm just going to take a little snip. There you go. Can you see the little snip there? So I'm not up at the stitches. You see the stitches are a little bit away. And now I can have this one go this way, and that can go that way. See? Well, that looks pretty good. Now this feels much flatter. Does that make sense? Okay. So you're just going to feel around any place that you might need to fix that seam, any of the seam allowances. But when you press this, so first I would turn it over, and I'm going to press it with my wheel, because I want to make sure that I don't have any creases in my fabric. So see how it's looking pretty straight on the sides. Not perfect, but it's looking pretty good. Then I would flip it over and just make sure I finger press everything the way it's supposed to go. And then I would just put my iron down just a little bit and down a little bit. Make sure everybody's still okay. And then put it down longer. Give it a little steam. Pick it up. Give it a little steam. And then just let it cool for a second. And then flip it over and do the same thing on this side. So there we go. Did everybody get their block done? Did you learn anything new today? I hope so. Don't forget, put your dies away. So I'm putting mine right here. And next week, we're going to work on the basket. Okay, so if you want to take a picture of the basket. Now, the basket where the red is, I may take some of my scraps from my leftovers, my other blocks, and I may make those all different colors instead of being all one color. I haven't decided yet. And just remember, if you make it and it's all different colors and you don't like it, just make another one with all the same color, and you can turn your other block into a pot holder and give it to somebody, or a mug rug and give it to somebody. Okay, so I'm going to wait just a second. So this is our last two. So this is next week. This is the week after. And next week we're going to talk about doing the sashing. We're not going to do the sashing next week. We're going to talk about the sashing so that you're prepared. Okay? So I'll just give it a minute or two, see if anybody has any questions while I pick up my tools and put them away. I've got to switch back over to embroidery for the morning. Saturday sew along, 1 p.m. We're doing a zipper bag, and I will put the fabric dimensions out tomorrow. You'll need a zipper, probably at least. I generally use like an 18-inch zipper. I don't use little zippers. Sometimes little zippers cost more. Are you still sewing, Lynn? You're a good doobie. Okay, so I'm just going to wait a minute, see if anybody has any last minute questions. Thanks everyone for joining in. We're moving along. Hope everybody is enjoying their Gemini cutter. We're going to be doing another project after this one, and we may take in the, what are we in? We're in the BuildaBlock, and I think the other one's called the BuildaBlock Plus, maybe, where we can add in some different shapes. We'll see. Let me know if if you want to try some more. Well, we'll talk about it. I'll try to do some over the next couple weeks. I'll try to do a couple sample blocks, because maybe we'll go 12 inches this next time and make some big pieces. So if anybody has any thoughts about it, just let me see. I didn't post to the Facebook today, so I'll go post right now to the Facebook, my Facebook, and I'll put this block up. And then if you have any questions, suggestions of what you'd like to do in the future, what size blocks, if you want to use the BuildaBlock first box, or if you want to add on the BuildaBlock, I think it's Plus is what it's called. It's like an add-on to it. We also will be doing something next year, probably January, with the letters and numbers set. So I'd like to hear from you and see what you have to say. Okay, so thanks again, everyone. Have a great weekend, and some of you, I'll see you at Saturday at 1, and check my Facebook. It probably won't be till tomorrow night. I hate to be that late because I have that big class tomorrow for what we'll need for fabric. I know it's going to be like a couple fat quarters and a zipper and some thread. So again, thanks a lot for joining in. Hit the like if you liked it. Hit the share to share with someone. Ring the bell. Subscribe. I think I covered it all. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great night.